In 1957, deep in the Russian tundra, a mysterious and terrifying explosion unleashed a nuclear cloud like the world had never seen. No bomb had been dropped, and no test was underway. This was a disaster shrouded in secrecy. What really happened that day, and why? Let's explore. Chelyabinsk 40 was a secret Soviet city that did not appear on maps. People who lived there could not tell anyone where they worked, and their mail and phone calls were watched. The Mayak nuclear complex, located there, produced plutonium for Soviet nuclear weapons. Workers raced to match American capabilities, but safety was ignored. Nuclear waste was dumped directly into rivers and lakes, contaminating water that flowed through villages. After one lake was destroyed by radiation, waste was dumped into Lake Karachay. Today, Lake Karachay is the most polluted place on Earth. Standing on its shore for just 30 minutes would be deadly due to extreme radiation. The Soviet leadership cared more about nuclear power than protecting people or the environment. The disaster on September 29, 1957, began with the failure of a cooling system for a 27-ton container holding highly radioactive liquid waste. This container required constant cooling to prevent overheating, but the cooling system had been broken for days without repair. As the radioactive material heated up, it became unstable and dried out. Safety protocols were ignored, leading to an explosion equal to 70 tons of TNT. This explosion sent a radioactive cloud over 1 kilometer high, spreading dangerous contamination across hundreds of kilometers in Russia. The explosion brought attention to significant issues in the government's management of the incident, where transparency was limited. The secret police managed the situation with a focus on containment. Approximately 270,000 people were affected by radiation exposure, experiencing various health symptoms. Medical professionals were directed to report common illnesses rather than radiation-related conditions. Only about 10,000 individuals were relocated from affected areas without a detailed explanation. The overall response led to prolonged challenges for those impacted. The radiation levels in affected areas were significantly above safe limits, with individuals receiving in minutes what is usually a year's dose. Many unknowingly consumed contaminated water and food. Children and expectant mothers were particularly at risk. Health consequences appeared both immediately and over time, including greater rates of illnesses and birth challenges. Villages were evacuated or left deserted after prolonged exposure. The response was delayed, and information was limited, contributing to extended difficulties for those affected. The devastating human impact was just the beginning, but what happened next would reveal a story of decades-long secrecy and silence. For many years, the Mayak disaster was kept confidential, with official records restricted and witness accounts limited. It wasn't until the late 1980s, during a period of increased openness, that the event was officially mentioned, though its severity was understated. In 1957, unusual radiation was detected internationally, but the exact source was unclear. After the Soviet Union dissolved, independent studies showed the environmental impact was more serious than initially believed. The disaster is classified at the highest level on the International Nuclear Event Scale, similar to Chernobyl, but it has not gained the same worldwide attention. Estimates indicate about 8,000 people died due to the disaster, though the full impact remains unclear because of delayed reporting and long-term health effects. The Mayak nuclear complex, located in the closed city of Ozyorsk, remains operational today, with strict access controls. Independent studies show that radioactive contamination still affects the soil, water, and ecosystem more than 6 decades after the disaster. Despite these findings, local authorities downplay the risks. The facility is a key part of Russia's nuclear program, with significant investments to modernize it, emphasizing nuclear power's importance over addressing past incidents or public health concerns. This ongoing secrecy serves to protect the national reputation, avoid compensation claims, and maintain long-standing confidentiality. However, it also prevents learning crucial lessons that could help prevent future nuclear incidents. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming journeys. Just as the concealment begins to unravel, the environmental devastation spreading far beyond the accident site raises an even more urgent question: how lasting will this damage be for future generations? The Mayak disaster's environmental impact goes far beyond the explosion site. Radioactive contamination spread across vast parts of the Russian Urals, affecting forests, rivers, lakes, and farmland. The Teka River, which flows through many villages downstream, has become one of the most polluted rivers in the world. Before the explosion in 1957, Mayak had already been dumping radioactive waste into this river, worsening contamination dramatically after the accident. Wildlife suffered greatly. Fish in lakes and rivers died in large numbers, and forests were disrupted as trees absorbed radiation through their roots. This contamination moved through the food chain, hitting every ecosystem level. Farmland became unsafe for growing food. Crops absorbed radiation from the soil, making them harmful to eat. Livestock grazing on contaminated land became radioactive too, making their meat and milk unsafe. The problem is long-lasting. Many radioactive isotopes released have half-lives of decades or centuries. Some areas will stay dangerous for hundreds of years. The environmental damage will affect many future generations. The Mayak disaster exposes a key problem with Cold War nuclear development. Both the United States and the Soviet Union rushed to build nuclear weapons, ignoring safety and valuing secrecy over human life. This risky mindset also shaped early civilian nuclear power, using weapons-grade technology with weak safety. Mayak showed the dangers of cooling system failures, poor radioactive waste storage, and neglected safety rules. But because the disaster was kept secret, these lessons came too late. Today, modern nuclear plants have multiple backup safety measures to prevent such accidents, but these upgrades arrived decades after they were needed, often spurred by disasters like Chernobyl. The disaster also reveals the need for international oversight. Secret nuclear programs lack pressure to maintain safety. The International Atomic Energy Agency now monitors global nuclear sites partly due to dangers exposed by hidden programs like Mayak. The most difficult aspect of the Mayak incident is how those affected were treated by their own government. These were Soviet citizens, dedicated workers in the nuclear program, and families living in unfortunate circumstances. The workers were honored as heroes, believing they contributed to their country's safety, but after exposure to harmful materials linked to lapses in oversight, they felt abandoned. Village residents had no control over their exposure. They lived everyday lives until the incident affected their environment. Instead of support, they encountered misinformation and limited assistance. Many experienced serious health challenges without fully understanding their causes, while the full details were not openly shared. Families were also kept uninformed. Children lost parents without knowing the true reasons, and spouses witnessed loved ones face health struggles with unclear explanations. The situation was not fully transparent at multiple levels. Even now, many survivors and their families have not received adequate compensation or care. Although recognized, efforts by authorities to assist those affected remain limited. In summary, the Mayak disaster was a catastrophic nuclear accident caused by negligence in radioactive waste storage, covered up by the Soviet government, with long-lasting human and environmental consequences, still concealed and downplayed by modern authorities. Now we want to ask you, have you ever heard of this disaster? Let us know your thoughts on Mayak in the comments. The heartbreaking stories of those affected by the Mayak disaster reveal a painful legacy of silence and indifference. Just when we think we have reached the full extent, shocking details of other disasters emerge, exposing deeper failures and a long-hidden truth. The Kyshtym disaster is known as one of the deadliest nuclear disasters in history. This incident is notable due to several factors, including construction issues at the nuclear facility, which was built very quickly. Additionally, the handling of radioactive nuclear waste after the disaster was problematic. Nuclear waste was initially dumped into a nearby river, which flowed through several villages before reaching Lake Kysel. After significant contamination of that lake, waste disposal was moved to Lake Karachay, now considered one of the most polluted places on Earth, due to radioactive contamination. Prolonged exposure near the lake, even for 30 minutes, can be extremely hazardous. The disaster itself occurred on September 29, 1957, at the Mayak plant in the Soviet Union. An explosion equivalent to about 70 tons of TNT originated from a 27-ton deep-cooled container used to store nuclear waste. The cooling system designed to prevent such an event had malfunctioned and was not repaired in time. As nuclear material overheated, it caught fire and exploded, spreading radioactive waste in all directions, including into a nearby city. Radioactive smoke from the fire drifted northeast, affecting many villages, towns, and cities. Unfortunately, the affected populations were not warned or evacuated immediately, as the incident was kept secret by the government. As a result, many residents suffered radiation sickness in the following days, with the death toll increasing over time. Eventually, evacuations took place, though the reasons were not initially disclosed to the residents. The truth was revealed about 2 years later. It is estimated that approximately 270,000 people were affected by radioactive contamination from the disaster. On January 3, 1961, at the National Reactor Test Station near Idaho Falls, Idaho, a serious radioactive incident occurred that resulted in the loss of 3 lives. Beginning at 9 p.m., 3 military operators were on duty at the U.S. Army's experimental nuclear reactor, known as SL-1, when one of them withdrew the reactor's central control rod, causing the reactor to shift from a complete shutdown to a critical alert state. Control rods in a nuclear reactor absorb neutrons to regulate the nuclear chain reaction, much like the accelerator pedals control speed in a vehicle. Removing rods reduces neutron absorption, increasing the rate of fission and energy output. When the central control rod was fully withdrawn, the reactor produced so much energy that the water inside overheated and expanded, releasing radioactive steam above the reactor vessel. Minutes later, the vessel experienced an explosion. One operator was thrown upwards and pinned against the ceiling, while the other 2 sustained severe injuries. Fortunately, most of the radiation was contained within the facility, simplifying the cleanup process, though it still took about 14 months to fully decontaminate the area. All radioactive materials were buried deep underground nearby. The 3 men who lost their lives were honored with careful interment in protective lead containers within a secure vault, then encased in concrete. To this day, the exact reason why the control rods were withdrawn remains unknown. A common theory suggests that personal issues involving one of the operators may have influenced his actions, though the details remain speculative. On September 30, 1999, in Japan, 3 workers at a nuclear fuel conversion company chose to take a shortcut while preparing enriched uranium fuel. This unfortunate decision resulted in the loss of 2 lives and posed risks to many others. The incident began when the 3 men, bypassing some important safety procedures to meet a shipping deadline, accidentally mixed an amount of nitrate in uranium 7 times the recommended limit, and used uranium enriched to 18.8%, much higher than the usual 3 to 5%. This caused an uncontrolled nuclear chain reaction, resulting in a bright blue light explosion and the release of significant radiation. As radiation alarms sounded, all workers on shift quickly evacuated. However, 56 workers, along with about 667 first responders and nearby residents, were exposed to elevated levels of radiation. It took several months to fully clean and secure the site. The power plant was subsequently shut down and remains closed. As for the 3 workers involved, 2 passed away soon after due to radiation exposure, while the 3rd survived and was found responsible for negligence. The company responsible for the incident later paid approximately $121 million in compensation to affected residents and local businesses. The 3 Mile Island incident is often regarded as one of the most serious nuclear events in the United States. On March 28, 1979, at around 4 a.m. near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a reactor began releasing small amounts of radioactive gas and iodine into the environment, though the conditions inside the nuclear power plant were more severe. The reactor overheated, leading to a partial meltdown, caused by a combination of operator error and equipment malfunction. Although only a limited amount of radioactive gas was released, the situation understandably led to widespread public concern. Being awakened in the early morning by emergency vehicle sirens instructing residents to close windows and stay indoors naturally caused alarm. As people tuned into the news, misinformation and alarming theories circulated, fueled by uncertainty. One widely spread rumor claimed that the nuclear core was so hot it could burn through the earth, a sensational idea popularized by the film The China Syndrome. During this anxious time, people sought reassurance from officials. Later that day, the vice president of the company operating the plant appeared on television to address questions, though his response, "I don't know why we need to tell you everything we do," did little to ease concerns. This event contributed to the rise of the anti-nuclear movement during the 1970s and prompted significant changes in nuclear plant design and regulations. The affected area was thoroughly cleaned by 1993, and no deaths have been officially attributed to the incident. How do you think people felt waking up to emergency sirens in the middle of such a frightening event? Comment and chat with me. What really happened next at Windscale, and how did a desperate fight against the flames reveal truths no one expected? The Windscale Fire is considered one of the most serious nuclear incidents in UK history. On October 10, 1957, at the Windscale nuclear reactor facility, a fire broke out following a malfunction in the temperature control system, which caused the reactor core to overheat and damage the uranium fuel canisters. Initially, the crew tried to control the fire by increasing fan speeds, but this unintentionally intensified the flames. Attempts were then made using liquid carbon dioxide and water to extinguish the fire, with limited success. It was only after shutting down the fans completely that water could gradually cool the fire, a process that took around 3 days. During this time, the fire released radioactive materials into the atmosphere, including iodine-131, cesium-137, and xenon-133, which spread across parts of the UK and Europe. Nearby communities were not evacuated or warned immediately, as information related to the incident was restricted by authorities at the time. It was several decades later before the full details became public. Subsequent studies have estimated that several individuals may have been affected by health issues possibly linked to the event. Chernobyl is considered the most significant nuclear incident in history, and it was not entirely unexpected. On April 26, 1986, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant near Pripyat, Ukraine, an explosion occurred that profoundly affected many lives. The incident happened during a test when operators removed most of the control rods, causing the reactor water to overheat. They also lost control of the cooling system, leading to increased pressure inside the reactor. At 1:23 a.m., the reactor exploded, releasing a large amount of smoke and radioactive material into the atmosphere. Hundreds of emergency responders were dispatched to manage the fire. Many wore only basic protective equipment as awareness of radiation risks was limited at the time. Unfortunately, about 28 responders passed away in the following days or weeks from radiation-related illnesses. Some firefighters familiar with the plant understood the dangers, but chose to act despite the risks, demonstrating great courage. Over the following days, more than 600,000 people, including emergency responders, plant workers, military personnel, and volunteers, worked to contain the fire and manage cleanup, a campaign lasting about 10 days. The area remains one of the most radioactively affected locations. For those interested, the popular Chernobyl series provides a powerful tribute to the bravery and dedication of those who stepped forward in this crisis. Subscribe now so you don't miss our next exploration into the stories that shape our world. On July 13, 1959, the most significant nuclear incident in U.S. history occurred. The concerning aspect is that residents were not informed at the time, and it took 2 decades for details to become public. The Santa Susana Field Laboratory, operated by NASA, Boeing, and the U.S. Department of Energy, is located just a few miles from Los Angeles, California, a city with roughly 3.8 million people. The incident began when a test nuclear reactor began to overheat. Operators attempted to halt the reaction by lowering control rods, but increasing pressure made this ineffective. To reduce pressure, operators released radioactive gases into the air. It is estimated that significant amounts of iodine-131 and cesium-137 were released, with the radioactive gases dispersing over the surrounding areas. For comparison, the 3 Mile Island incident released much smaller amounts of similar substances. Iodine-131 has a relatively short half-life of 8 days, while cesium-137 remains in the environment for much longer, around 30 years. Because the incident was not disclosed for many years, residents were unknowingly exposed, leading to an increase in certain health conditions, including rare cancers. Additionally, it was later revealed that several reactors had experienced prior incidents. A particular group of workers handled radioactive materials in ways that generated hazardous fumes, and many of these workers later faced serious health challenges. Several documentaries have highlighted this event and its aftermath, including an MSNBC production titled In the Dark of the Valley. The plant remains closed, and cleanup efforts continue. The Fukushima Daiichi incident was one of the most significant nuclear events in recent history, occurring at a challenging time on March 11, 2011. Japan had already experienced a major 9.0 magnitude earthquake that affected the entire country, but that was just the beginning. About 30 minutes later, a powerful tsunami struck Japan, severely impacting its power infrastructure. Shortly after the power loss, one of the reactors at Japan's largest nuclear power facility began to overheat, and with the cooling system offline, the 3 reactors at the site became increasingly unstable. The first reactor experienced an explosion on March 12, followed by another on March 14, and a third on March 15. The incident was rated a level 7 on the International Nuclear Events Scale, the highest classification, due to the substantial amount of radioactive material released. While only one individual is reported to have passed away from direct radiation exposure, a significant impact was felt by approximately 165,000 people who were displaced, either due to evacuation orders or concerns about returning to their homes. Now we want to ask you, have you heard of the 9 disasters? Let us know what you think of them in the comments. We are curious, and we will see you back here next time. Stay healthy.
Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.